Greetings, friends. I'm Vitaly Portnikov. The parliamentary elections in the Republic of Moldova ended with an impressive victory for the pro-European forces. The Action and Solidarity Party, firmly aligned with the esteemed current head of state, Maia Sandu, has secured a significantly solid and commanding majority in the country's newly elected parliament and will consequently be able to effortlessly form a government. And the so-called Patriotic Bloc, which is led by the country's former presidents who are indeed oriented towards the Kremlin, specifically Igor Dodon and Vladimir Voronin, will ultimately have to settle for the role of the opposition. In order for pro-Russian forces to be able to effectively seek revenge and exert their influence in these crucial parliamentary elections, the Kremlin has meticulously concentrated a truly immense amount of both strategic effort and substantial material resources. They even changed the overseer of the so-called Moldovan direction in the Russian presidential administration, replacing Dmitry Kozak, who for many decades tried to destabilize Moldova and assist anti-Moldovan pro-Russian forces in his politics, came the ambitious first deputy head of the Russian presidential administration, Sergei Kiriyenko, known for his ability to find common ground and establish rapport with pro-Russian politicians, individuals who had already successfully promoted Moscow-oriented political figures in the recent presidential elections held within the self-proclaimed Republic of Abkhazia. Nevertheless, even Kiriyenko was unable to change the trend associated with the desire of society in the Republic of Moldova to see their country as part of the European family rather than the Russian world. The war in neighboring Ukraine also played its part. It was obvious that if pro-Russian anti-Moldovan forces won these parliamentary elections, Moscow would do everything possible to revive its Transnistrian project as a tool for provoking and destabilizing the situation in southern Ukraine, which, of course, doesn't promise anything good for the future of Moldova itself as a nation. It was abundantly clear that Russia was also deeply interested in significantly slowing down the European integration process of the Republic of Moldova, especially because this relatively small country is actively negotiating its EU accession, a crucial step, together with Ukraine. And thus, to significantly slow down Moldova's European integration efforts would automatically mean slowing down Ukraine's European aspirations as well. Nevertheless, the undeniable fact that the pro-European political forces in the Republic of Moldova diligently reminded their dedicated voters of all these crucial circumstances played a very important and indeed pivotal role in the overall outcome. And of course, a truly important and significant role was played by the unwavering determination of Moldova's courageous leadership in steadfastly resisting the blatant, indeed almost entirely undisguised, attempts by Moscow to decisively take control of the parliamentary elections in another sovereign country. And through the financing of political forces oriented toward Moscow, often this funding literally took place in the offices of so-called political parties, which, as a result of decisions by Moldova's Central Election Commission and judicial institutions, were ultimately unable to participate in the election. This is also preparation for destabilizing the situation in Moldova. And by the way, this significant risk still remains because we continue to hear calls for protests from the former president and leader of the so-called socialists, Igor Dodon, in connection with the alleged falsification of the recent parliamentary elections. This is also a comprehensive exposé of the so-called intricate network of the fugitive businessman Ilan Shor, who, while comfortably residing in Moscow, is relentlessly churning out one anti-Moldovan political project after another, each designed to undermine stability. Clearly, these nefarious projects do not so much originate from the personal pen of this notorious millionaire fraudster himself, but are rather explicitly dictated by his powerful handlers from the relevant Russian state institutions, who have been deeply interested in actively destabilizing the Republic of Moldova almost from the very first crucial days after the resilient people of this proud country decisively declared their sovereignty and hard-won independence. Of course, the overwhelming majority of the pro-presidential party in the country's parliament would undoubtedly not have been secured without the crucial and active support of those dedicated citizens of the Republic of Moldova who currently live abroad, residing in various foreign nations, and who emphatically do not want their own beloved country to return to any form of special, potentially restrictive, relations with Moscow, which could compromise its sovereignty and future European integration. Well, once again, we can express our profound gratitude and sincerely thank these remarkable people for consistently remembering and not forgetting about their cherished homeland and their vital civic duties, even while living in emigration, often facing challenges and adapting to new cultures in other countries, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to their nation's democratic future. However, it can also be noted that even without the support of the diaspora, Maya Sandu's party would still have been the leading party in terms of the number of votes cast for it. And even without the crucial votes from the extensive diaspora, the combined forces of the communists and socialists, who were united in a rather deceptive pseudo-patriotic bloc, would have had absolutely no realistic chance of successfully forming a new and stable government for the entire country. Perhaps in this case, the Action and Solidarity Party should have considered forming a coalition with other political forces that made it into the new parliament of the Republic of Moldova. This would not have been easy, but nevertheless, potential coalition partners for the Action and Solidarity Party in the new Moldovan parliament would obviously have been found. And one more truly important outcome of these recent elections, not a strategic one, but rather a more immediate tactical one, is that social networks still undeniably play a significant role in actively shaping voters' attitudes. And here, the nation of Moldova is certainly not an exception to this, but rather a clear and undeniable confirmation of this very general rule, which we absolutely should not forget when we are discussing future electoral campaigns and their potential impacts. The most significant and impactful result directly related to the profound influence of various social networks is the notable emergence of the Democracy at Home political party within the national parliament. And the leader Vasile Kostiuc enjoyed clear support from Romanian far-right groups, primarily from the Romanian presidential candidate George Simion, who made it to the second round of voting in the neighboring country's presidential election, but lost to the mayor of Bucharest, Nicu Șordan. So not only did Simion support Kostiuc, whose party in the previous parliamentary elections was, I would say, below the marginal threshold, but Kostiuc's presence on social media, especially on TikTok, created an entirely new level of popularity for him, allowing his party to now secure as many as 6 parliamentary seats in Moldova's new parliament. And it's also obvious that against the backdrop of this confrontation between pro-European patriotic forces and pro-Russian, anti-Moldovan political forces, Moldovan society is in a state of deep social division, where you can either vote for Sandu's party and help her stay in power, or for the former communists and socialists who have already been in power before. Centrist forces evoke deep distrust among voters as well as among external observers, and perhaps this is precisely why the electoral bloc Alternative, led by the mayor of Chisinau, Ion Teban, performed relatively poorly in the elections. Popular, indeed, in the Moldovan capital city, but still not quite enough for this particular political bloc to truly take the coveted first place here in the final voting results. Here, the Chabanov bloc also unfortunately lost to Maya Sandu's party, Nakibai. And of course, the most important and crucial point is that in this particular situation, it is significantly easier for populists, such as our political party led by Renato Usati, to successfully enter parliament than it is for established political forces like the Action and Solidarity Party, which consistently declare their strong pro-European principles and values. The prominent leaders of some of these political parties have even explicitly stated that they are deliberately running for parliament in order to form a strong coalition with Maya Sandu's party, in the unfortunate case that voters do not wish to cast their ballots for this particular party due to some deeply personal antipathy toward the current president or Sandu's close associates. But the average voter, it seems, did not fully grasp this particular logic and probably decided that any votes cast for alternative, more pro-European projects would actually be significantly diluted and would, in effect, help bring to power overtly anti-European forces, clearly symbolized by figures like Igor Dodon and Vladimir Voronin, as well as those other politicians who, almost until the very last day of the crucial elections, were openly patronized by Ilan Shor with the natural and undeniable support of the very same Sergei Kirienko. But now, of course, it is very important not just to win the elections, but also to maintain stability, because we know what kind of enemies the Republic of Moldova has to deal with. The destabilization of this country remains part of the political plans of the Russian political leadership, especially now when today Sergei Kirienko will get a scolding from his boss Vladimir Putin and will hear something hurtful. Sergei, is this why I handed Moldova over to you from Kozak? I think that in this case, the first deputy head of the presidential administration of Russia, together with employees of the Federal Security Service and the Foreign Intelligence Service of the Russian Federation, along with Russian propagandists and Russian agents in the Moldovan political camp, such as Dodon, Voronin, or the former Bashkan of Gagauzia, Irina Vla, will be preparing new, already post-election projects to destabilize the situation in Moldova for the sake of destabilizing the situation in Ukraine. And of course, it will be absolutely crucial for politicians in Moldova, the president of Moldova, and the newly formed Moldovan government to actively avoid this significant danger with the unwavering support of a united Europe, where there is an ever-growing understanding that the stability of Moldova's European choice also indeed significantly determines the stability of Ukraine itself, and by the way, the stability of the neighboring nation of Romania. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it, follow us on social media and on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee and Donatello. These platforms help support and develop these resources. You can also use the sponsorship feature right here on YouTube. Peace to you all.